that allowed the trail to be reopened. And so I guess it was that good that people that used to do the trail for the first time in like 40 years all came for the grand opening. And you know, it was really cool. I could tell by the energy of the people that it was a really fun time. But the trail had issued a warning, you know, do not attempt this trail, you know, unless you're in extremely good, or unless you're in good physical condition and are not afraid of heights. Well, I'm kind of a tub of shit, and I am afraid of heights. But I'm thinking, how hard could it be? I almost died. And there was some section of the trail where you're going through. Essentially, you're pretty much climbing through holes in rocks. You know, like a mouse, or maybe like Gollum or something would be good at it. And then there's a section where you're climbing vertically on a stone, you know, on these old rungs, you know, that are like 50 years old. And you know, the trail's been closed for 40 years. So I mean, I assume they made sure those rungs were safe. I'm glad they did, because I'm still here. But that's on top of, you're going up a mountain. And, you know, you could look down and the cars are, you know, tiny. And you can barely make out people. So yeah, that was pretty high. And when I got up to the top, you know, there was mist, you know, and it looks like smoke, but I'm like, no, man, that's cloud. And so I'm like, you know, worshiping the ground. People are like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes. I told him, yeah, I am afraid of heights. Oh man, you really conquered a demon today, didn't you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like a conqueror. I feel like I'm lucky to be here with my life. And, you know, going up the mountain, it was it was a workout. And, yeah. And I was like, wow, I really came here and got into a pickle right from right out of the gate. And I felt, man, I could turn around right now and go home and feel accomplished, and it was worth it. That's seriously how I felt. But I don't think this spot is going to be that hardcore. I don't want it to be. But yeah, that was, and I didn't see the condor. I wanted to see the condor. But one thing about that site was that you climbed the mountain. I believe it was Mount Champagne. We'll check it out. We'll see exactly what bird it was and how it's doing today, like some 7 years later. Wow, that is a pretty view. You know, it's about 1,000-mile journey to see that here in an electric car, which I will do a better job at documenting the trip back. I know these YouTube videos aren't very good, but they will get better. I think I'm going to be doing this for a while. Maybe someone will watch them. So, well, I smell the ocean. Yeah, I can smell, or I smell salt. Yeah, I think I'm about, I don't know, is that it over there? I don't know. But I have no idea how long I'll be on this trail. So anyway, what's going on, at least in Massachusetts, I don't know about the other New England states, are no tax weekend. And when I was charging in Auburn, Massachusetts, it's in the mall parking lot. And I walk in and I was like, I wonder, I heard the tariffs, kicked in today or yesterday. And I thought, I wonder, because I bought the shoes that I'm wearing. I think $109, and at a Journeys in Terre Haute, Indiana mall. So they had a Journeys in there, and I thought I'd go in and look at it, see if they were marked up. I don't think they would mark up something that they had in stock, but you never know. I don't know what the business model is to deal with the tariffs. I think everyone, or most, a lot of businesses will differ according to situation and location, etc. But they're still $109. And one thing I was noticing, that's the same price in Massachusetts as in Indiana, where in general they say the cost of living here is a lot higher than in Indiana. And I observed from another YouTuber, a very good YouTuber, who successful, who was in West Virginia. He's from New York, and he had noticed that like a drink at the gas station, like a Powerade, or vitamin water, is like $3.50, the same price it is in New York City. And so that hits the poorer regions a lot harder. So when they say cost of living, it refers to, I guess, taxes and utilities, but some things that are distributed nationally are, the same price all over the country. But I think if you look at the data, the graphs, you'd see a K distribution. The poor are always going to take the hit a lot harder. It sucks, but that's the way it is. They're always going to, because it's like, I was fortunate enough to for a way to get my solar panels and my EV. It just kind of fell in my lap unexpectedly, and to pay for it without paying any interest. And after about 11 years of savings, those two things are paid for, and then that's just then you just don't have an electric bill, and you don't have I don't have an electric bill. I don't have a car payment, but you know what I mean. At that point, you've already saved enough money, to match the initial investment. And with the solar panels, it's 4 years, and then with the car, it's an additional, I think I did the numbers, and it's about 8 years, considering travel, and routine trips to work and to Champaign. So I wonder if we're going to get closer to what I believe is the ocean. I believe I can hear it. How about you? I can hear the wind zooming in unobstructed. There are no buildings or trees or hills to break the wind. It's just coming at you, coming at us hardcore. Yeah, I like places like this. And I like, normally I'm not going to say I'm a very good people person, but I am in places like this. Because when you're on vacation, it seems like people are at their best, And it's like, hey, they're more talkative. They're free from the stresses. They're free from the daily grind. And what if we were always like that? What if we were always kind of in that state? For one, I think it'd be a great idea. For one, I think people would probably think you're a little bit insincere. Maybe at first. Wow. Wonder how deep that is. Then they might catch on, or there's something about you, like, wow, what's so special? Why is that guy so full of life and happiness and energy? Oh yeah, because he's not worried about the stupid shit that most people are. He's not thinking about it because it's far away. I remember anybody in there? Looks like a nice hole. Yeah. He probably would have found it if anybody was there. Maybe there'll be an Excalibur for me to pull out somewhere along the line.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah. You read me like a book. Yeah, she doesn't want to see me with the sword, and I don't blame her. I get pretty ugly on these road trips. but it's kind of like a constant state of, just waking up. But I remember I was talking to this guy Kotzer way back, a long time ago. I'd asked him when he was leaving for vacation. He's like, "I'm always on vacation." I was like, "Right on, man." Haven't seen him in quite a while. He's in South Carolina, if anybody knows. I actually went there with him to, I assume, the house that he lives in. He was meeting some of his cousins for the first time, and he had only been out there like once. When this is about 30 years ago, when we were teenagers, right out of high school. It's like, hey, let's go to South Carolina. I've got some family there, and they own some land. And I was like, cool. Went to Myrtle Beach. I went out skateboarding, met a skateboarder, started talking to him, and we actually became pen pals. That was before email. A little bit. It was about 95. And I think I sent my first email in like 96. And I think he sent me a letter. I got a letter. I'm not sure. But I wrote him back. I think I wrote him first. And then he writes me back and he tells me he's in jail. He's in prison. And he's like, Colin, it was so good to hear from you, man. I didn't know if I'd ever hear from you again. It was so cool hanging out with you, bro. But things have shit the bed here. I am in jail. and I'm in prison. And he explained what happened to me. He was he said that he had an attorney, and he knew his attorney was on vacation, and him and his girlfriend, I guess, unofficially house sat. So he said they didn't steal anything, but they got caught somehow. I don't know. So he was in jail, and it was just kind of fun. It was a good thing to experience, pen pal. Not for him to experience jail like that, but before email and before the internet, you had, you bought records and CDs, or CDs actually. And they were a lot of money. They cost a lot of money. And the dollar did not have a lot of purchasing power. Well, I take that back. They cost a lot, and you didn't get a lot of money. So it was much more of a big deal than buying a CD today. They're like $10-12. Well, they were like $15-16, $12 to $16. And if you were a college kid or a teenage worker, you made, like $5 an hour, like before tax. But It was all about going to the record stores, hanging out, meeting people, tape trading. You know, you just, in the 90s, you couldn't, you know, just listen to it for free, you know. Different worlds. You know, times change, of course. And I'm not, you know, I like buying records, obviously, because I'm very materialistic, I suppose. You know, I like holding it. I like the art. I like the idea of contributing to the artist. You know, like when I see a live band play at the dive bar or, you know, local venue club. You know, I like buying the album, stickers, some merch. Because, you know, these guys, if they're lucky, they're just breaking even, you know. When I lived at the yoga house in Carbondale, we'd always let, you know, some bands or band members sleep on the couches, or extra couches or floors, you know, and you know, that's how those are the two ways they made their money. By not getting hotel rooms and, you know, sleeping on couches and floors, and people buying their CDs. You know, they probably made more money that way than they did, you know, from the bar. So I just had the first clue of an animal. I think there's a woodpecker right above me. Not so much else yet. This might be very reminiscent of, or very similar to the wildlife refuge in Coles County. The name of it escapes me right now. But back in the 50s, it was a woman, just not as well known as Rachel Carson, but she's obviously well off. But she had thought that, you know, it's just pretty soon the Mattoon and Charleston borders are going to connect. You know, the towns are growing, and she bought and got a foundation going. You know, it was probably a couple, you know, 5 to 10 acres at the most of natural Illinois prairie at that point. So, you know, someday she might be right. You know, being here just makes me appreciate things like that more. Because we really do in Coles County, there's a lot of little things. You know, I like to go visit retro game stores and music stores, record stores, places like this. We've got our stuff, you know. 4th Street Records. We've got, there's a retro game. It's, you know, it's a decent little shop on the square now even. He's got a couple items, and what's not bad is a Broadway resale in Mattoon. I got a very rare NES game in the box. It didn't come with the poster of that came with it, but I think I can get it online for like $20. The game is called Taboo. It's just a Ouija board or a tarot card reading. You know, there's nothing, there's no strategy. You know, it's just a generated Ouija board, and it deals you talk to it, and it deals you some cards, and you figure it out. But I'm gonna have to play it. I haven't played it. I got it. I owned it back in the day, and then didn't really know what I was getting, and I sold it. But yeah. Got a big smell of the ocean again. Or salt. Maybe that's a marsh estuary or something like that. I believe it could be. Yeah, that's where I think that's where lobsters breed. Is it? Am I correct on that? I think lobsters have to go to estuaries. Somebody does, I know that for sure. A little bit more diversity, not just the crustose lichen that we have in Coles County, Illinois. Another thing that we have in Coles County is not just fox. Well, I didn't finish that at all. I was nowhere near done. with that topic. I think the game threw me off. Comic book store. And a good one. Long running one too at that. I think I'm going to get off the track just a little bit. Check this out. This area seems inviting. I was trying to create another word there. Thought better of it. Another English word. And Fox Ridge, and then Lakeview Park. The BMXers, mountain bikers like to go through and party and ravage. Non-destructively. I mean, I'd do it if I could do it. But I got hurt too much as a kid, and I went to skateboarding. You get hurt a lot less, I've found. I mean, I would just get trashed, knees and elbows. Still have scars, I think. But I remember I first came back about 9 years ago, and I was I think I was just waiting to leave. I think I just finished CDL class, truck driving school, and was just waiting on company, and I just didn't have a job, and it was just it was a fun time. I just walked down there and walked a trail, and I'd been down there as a kid, many times, and I got lost, and I was talking to a guy that I worked with in Carbondale, and I told him, we were just messengering, Facebook Messenger. I told him I was lost, and couldn't get much of a reception of the map or anything like that. But every now and then, I could, slip him a message once it, if it came in temporarily. I remember talking to him about, he thought, man, I told him I was going to run for Schneider, and I wish I did in retrospect. But that would have changed things, and could have been for the better, could have been for the worst. I don't know. Hurt somebody, hurt something. Hurt an animal. And he was worried about the hair follicle drug test. And it goes back to to 10 years, they say. Well, that's only if your hair is 10 years old. If you got dreadlocks or some shit. But, so it was misleading. It's just, you shave your head, and then after two weeks, you shave it again. And the hair that grows doesn't have any evidence of drug use. And I told him that, and it just ruined his day. Man, I could have rode for Schneider. And I was like, yeah, unless you had dreadlocks or something like that. But he passed away not too long after that. And I had seen him. I was out delivering pizza about 10:30 on a Sunday morning, and my first delivery was to an apartment, and he lived next door. And he's like, hey, can you give me a ride to the liquor store? And I was like, yeah. And then I took him back. He was, yeah, the plan is I'm just gonna drink all day, and saw him, at the end of the day when I got off work. It was my marathon day. he's back at the liquor store. I had worked a 12-hour shift or 14-hour shift. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And there he is coming back for more. And he had like a smashed in eye, and he had a cigarette butt in his mouth that wasn't smoking. And my guess is he got in a fight with a sidewalk somehow. And he was very unintelligible, but I don't know. I hope I can't see him carrying that home, but the man, he just went hard. He ended up getting in a wreck not too long after that, and I think it put him in the hospital, and then he had stage 4 liver disease and passed away at the age of 37. He was a nice guy, really nice guy. It's, fun to work with and talk to. Never was a bigger asshole than he needed to be. And don't know why he had to drink and do the drugs so hard. And see, all these bad things started happening to him. Like, his he had lost his girlfriend who was giving birth to their child, and the hospital made a mistake. I guess cut the oxygen off, and she died during childbirth. And they weren't married, so that complicated things even further. And but the kids she ended up having twins, and the kids are well off when they turn 18. And I guess parents didn't really want anything to do with him because of his drug and alcohol abuse. And then he died. And one of the sad things of it is, believe it or not, I think it was when I was going to Maine. I was saying, yeah, I'm just going to go by myself, and I'm going to go to Acadia and basically just walk that entire island, because it almost looks like Morrowind, the video game. And I'm just going to, as much as I can. I'm not sure what the scope and scale is, but I'm just going to walk the island, as if it's the whole universe. Open-end universe, but very limited scale. Told him about that. He goes, don't you want to, go with somebody to share the experience with? And I was like, no. You want to look back and remember things with somebody. And I knew, he was happy that he was with his girlfriend. Then I think about that and I just get sad, I mean, what a bag of dicks. Total shitter. I mean, just one after, literally a couple months, wasn't even 6 months after she died, he died. And he was healthy, full of life. He's cracking jokes and Didn't seem to be stressed out at all. But, you know, give him a day alone. Well, I'm going to spend it all day drinking beer and watching TV. Don't know why. I think I'm going to have to visit his grave next time I go to Carbondale. And her grave. Never met her. You know, and I wonder if there was anything I could have done. I doubt it. Carbondale is the alcoholic's paradise, they say. It's so cheap. A lot of businesses are closing down. I'm almost scared to go there because I don't think I'm going to like what I see. It's just all on a much smaller scale. So what's interesting, I guess, so I've got about 5 miles to Kennebunkport, and then that's the final destination, and I'm on a homeward journey starting then. And it's Saturday, probably about 3:30. And I have to be at home Monday night. It's about 25 hours of driving and charging. And I thought I would pretty much do that nonstop. I try is the attempt to do that. I can get some shut eye. I guess what I'll do and what I should do. Only get a motel room if it has free EV charging. That way, I'm getting a good rest for, like as little, the Baker's Inn was $73. That charge was worth a cool $23. So about $50 that included some good coffee in the morning. Imagine if it had a gym and a pool and a full breakfast. Go to a rest stop about 2:30. Get about 3.5 hours rest. Who knows? They might, coming back through New York, they call them service, I think service plazas, or a travel plaza is basically a truck stop, but they call it something else. It's pretty neat how, like in New York, the interstates, I think are pretty much, well, the one north is a toll. It's not too, I mean, like probably $20 to take it all the way across the state. And they have these little, every 40 30 miles they have, they're pretty much rest areas, jacked up rest areas with shops, and I think you've seen them, but they design it so you don't need to get off the road, off the interstate. Like everywhere else, it'll say, hey, here's some services. You have to, basically go into the town to get it. And it might be, some time, a mile or two. So a lot of towns, of course, built, set up around the interstate, businesses like in Mattoon, Steak and Shake. Even, back in the 60s, the first McDonald's was not in town at all. And I think I've just completed, I believe I'm going back to the car. But here, because they want you to stay on the interstate, and get a bigger toll, the businesses are all there in the kind of in the dome in the rest area. You tend to see a lot of old buildings, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Like from the, there's not new development by the interstate like there is in Illinois, and I think I'm gonna start calling it Illinois. It's just fun, and I might as well start adding an S to the end of everything. Because, you're from Illinois. Yeah, sure. Minus the S. Yeah, here we are. Well, that's that. I think I'm going to have to visit that outhouse again. Well, I'm out. Probably some of the conversation you thought was pretty messed up, but to each his own. I wish you good night and good day.